Gold and silver might be the best investment you make as inflation continues to spiral out of control. Inflation hit a 40-year high last week, and inflation means the dollar is buying less gas, less groceries, less consumer goods. It basically means everything is costing more because the dollar is losing value. This video will make the case for gold and silver and why you need to have it in your portfolio, and I'm going to recommend some books along the way. Hi, I'm attorney Michael J. Letson, and this channel is to help you make more money every day and make better investments decisions. Just a little disclaimer before we get started. This video is for educational purposes only. I'm not a financial advisor. Please do your own research. Investments involve risk. This is simply my view on why I think that you need to have gold and silver in your possession. So let's get started. Let's first talk about gold or the dollar, specifically how we got here. The dollar used to be backed by gold, and very few people know that. After World War II, we set up a system called the Bretton Woods system. This put the dollar on top because we were the only currency in the world that was backed by gold, and all the other currencies were pegged to us, were connected to us with us on top. This system was established right after World War II. This was used for about 30, I'd say about 30 years until 1971, when Nixon severed us from the gold standard. The gold standard was good for our country because it put limitations on our government. You couldn't print beyond what you had in your gold supply. You couldn't spend beyond what you had in your gold supply. And we'll see that after 1971, when the Bretton Woods system collapsed, when Nixon took us off the gold standard, that the spending and printing just simply went out of control. Okay, so after we left the gold standard, which means our dollar was not backed by anything at that point, it was just backed by the good faith and credit of the government. We became the petrodollar. And what that means is Nixon and Kissinger went to the OPEC countries and said, hey, will you guys agree to sell your oil in US dollars? We're going to make you very rich. And they entered into an agreement. So you have to come get dollars in the US before you can purchase oil. Most people don't even know that. That's why they call us a petrodollar. This isn't even taught in schools. So the reason why the dollar stayed on top after we left the gold standard is because we became the petrodollar. What's happening now is countries are entering into agreements outside of the US dollar and purchasing oil. China and Russia have entered an agreement. Russia and Saudi Arabia entered an agreement last summer. So after we left the gold standard, that's really when our spending and our printing really went out of control. So let's look at the spending and see where we're at. This is the U.S. debt clock, okay, and this is showing you exactly where we're at right now. If you're wondering why the numbers on the right keep going up, it's because that's interest accumulating. And if you watch this long enough, you'll see in just a matter of a few seconds, we're going up millions of dollars every single day. This is how bad our debt is. Now, I wanted you to get the big picture of our debt, and below it is the picture of how much it would cost every single person in this country to get out of this debt. Now, before we go into the last slide that I want to show you, which is my biggest argument of why you need to get into gold and silver now, I want to show you what the banks are doing right now. The central banks, which means the main banks of the world, the biggest banks of the world, the banks of each country, they're on a gold buying spree, okay? They've purchased enormous amounts of gold in the last 11 years. And in fact, JP Morgan got in trouble with the Justice Department just a few years ago for manipulating the precious metals market. Well, guess who is the biggest hoarder of silver in the world? That's right, JP Morgan. So during this time, banks have been massively accumulating gold. All right. So last thing the last thing I wanted to show you is the printing of the money. And, you know, I've heard my whole life that the US dollar will eventually collapse. And the people I followed have been dead wrong. It hasn't happened. And I kind of became, I kind of stopped believing them. But after I saw this chart, this is why I think it's so important right now that that for you to consider adding gold and silver to your portfolio. Let's take a look at this. This is the money supply. This is how much, this is how much money has been printed in the last 2 years. It's something that I love sharing because it gives them a heads up of where we're at and what has happened. So look at this chart. This is how much money the Federal Reserve has printed, and I want you to pay particular attention to 2020, and that's when the coronavirus happened. That's when the printing just absolutely went out of control. We have printed more money in the last 2 years than we have in the whole history of the country. And now you probably are now understanding why inflation is so bad and why it's not going to stop anytime soon. If you look and see how much money we printed in the last 2 years, it is absolutely ridiculous. Okay. And so what you need to understand is that no fiat currency, what I mean is paper currency, has ever lasted. And since the Roman Empire. And there's no reason to believe that the US dollar is any different. And that's why you really need to add gold and silver to your portfolio. Now, before I leave, let me give you some books to take a look at. This book by Mike Maloney, Investing in Gold and Silver, Guide to Investing in Gold and Silver. It's a great book. And his first 8 chapters go through the history of the dollar and how we got here in more detail than what I covered in this video. This book will get in why the rich are getting richer by Robert Kiyosaki, one of the best-selling business authors in the world. This will get into what the US dollar's been doing and how the dollar stayed on top. And this last book, my recommendation to everybody who comes to my office and talks to me about gold and silver is Why Money Destroys Nations. This guy was in Zimbabwe when their currency crashed, and you'll see that inflation spiraled out of control there. And you'll see the people that really survived and thrived were the people that had access to gold and silver. And these books are great books to get a better understanding. You don't have to take my word for it. Just remember, the more you know and the more you understand the markets, our currency, the better investment decisions you're going to make. Thank you for listening to this video. I look forward to the next video. I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.